Thank you for joining us on the RP Experience. I'm your host, Andrew Regenard, and today we have one of our preferred partners, Danielle Damianov, with CMG Financial, and one of our top producing agents and broker owner, Neil Cresswell with Sellstate. It's awesome to have you both on here. Today's topic is travel, what the do's and don'ts with clients, interactions, and everything in between from financial services to real estate. So on that note, Danielle, do you mind starting us off and just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So born and raised in a small town in Massachusetts, the Berkshires. A lot of people that live in Boston or don't even know where that is in Massachusetts. Pittsfield, I'm closer to Albany, New York.
Okay.
And went to college in Boston, absolutely loved it. And on one cold, rainy day, decided to move to Florida on a whim, moved to Tampa. I had a friend that was living there, but nowhere to live, didn't know what I was doing, and just moved on down. And I was there for about 3 years, and my parents sold everything and moved to Southwest Florida. So came down here, and here I am. I was here for a couple of years until 2012, moved to Miami at that point until 2016, and then decided to move back to this area. I had 2 kids in 2007 and 2008. So it was, a little difficult living over in Miami. I really wanted my kids to grow up with my parents and things like that. So
it's awesome.
So yeah, here I am.
I love it. I just actually got to experience Boston for the first time.
I saw on Facebook.
I've never been.
Did you love it?
It was great. I mean,
Awesome.
It was a little, closed right now in a sense. They
Yeah.
were a little bit strict on stuff, but yeah, it was really cool. And
You
it
know
wasn't
the
too
food
cold.
is amazing.
Oh my, the chowder.
chowder,
Chowder was
exactly.
so good. I think
Yeah.
every restaurant I ordered it, I was like, I have to.
Yeah.
It's like an unwritten rule. So, well, good. Well, you invited Neil. Obviously, Neil has a crazy story that we're going to get into later, a little bit about his career and his success. But can you tell the listeners first just a little bit about yourself, Neil?
Sure. I was born in Northern Ontario, Canada. I have a very different background. I think I was a real entrepreneur as this young child. Grew up with not a lot of money, so my parents taught me that if I wanted something, I'd figure out how to buy it. So I had real successful businesses when I was a very young child. Decided to get into real estate in my early 20s. So what I did is I actually researched and studied the real estate 5 highest producers. I studied them for 6 months before I sold a single home. My first year in the business, I was top producer in the city, and with my third year in the business, I was one of the nation's highest producing realtors. Literally went from rags to riches, from poor kid to millionaire overnight. By the time I was 25, got into the brokerage business because I knew that was where you really made the money, the wealth. I was always taught by my mentors you had to be a broker. And I bought into a franchise in Canada that's called Sutton Group. And over the next 3 years, I partnered up with my business partner, who is today. He's been my business partner for over 30 years.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we partnered up when I was a very young child, and we opened up a half a dozen of these franchises. We did so well that company owners, it was a national company, asked us to start franchising it with them and help them on national growth. We did that. Had a lot of success. That company turned into the second highest producing company in the nation, second to Remax, actually.
In Canada?
In Canada, yeah. So they never wanted to come to the United States. At that point, I was in my mid-30s, and I was at the top of my career. I had, many offices, a portion of a national franchise, as well as one of the top producing agents in the nation. And I decided, I came down to Florida on vacation one day and said, you know what, I'm done. I want to move here. And
who doesn't, right?
Exactly.
So I literally went back to Canada, and I told my family, I said, I'm moving to Florida. They said, it's impossible. You can't. Are you kidding? You own all these. And I owned a lot of businesses. So I owned 3 health clubs. I owned 2 construction companies. I owned hundreds of apartments, 6 brokerages, top salesperson. And that's the beginning of my business portfolio. And I said that in May, and I moved here in November. I went up there and I sold everything. My father-in-law sat down, and hammered me for 2 hours, said, Neil, you are absolutely the most successful businessman I've ever met in my life. You're in your mid-30s. You're at the top of your game. You're going to give everything up and move to Florida where you know not a soul. You have no friends. You have no family. You're going to start all over like your first day in college. And I looked at him in the eye and I said, what do you think, Dick? Do you think I got here because I was lucky? And that's what I said.
Very
and it was
true.
because it wasn't luck. And I came down here, started building a national company, and obviously it's, the rest is history. So came down to Florida. We started a national company, Sellstate. People down here said, you kid from Canada, you started a national real estate company. Are you kidding me? So I was always crazy like that. And it's, now we're pushing 100 offices, and hopefully we'll hit 200 next year.
I love that. Well, it's been pretty awesome to be able to hear your success and sit down and interview you. We were able to feature you a couple issues back, and it's been amazing. So, Danielle, tell us a little bit about how you got in the industry and where you're at currently today.
So graduated from Bentley, moved down to here. Similar story, but I didn't have all the businesses or success. I was just out of college, had no idea what I was doing. I just remember coming to visit my friend in Clearwater, and I was like, it's sunny, it's not raining. I left cold Boston on the 4th of July. I had my apartment there. I was living with 3 of my best friends. We just graduated from college. And I said, I am moving here. And I called my parents and said, I need money. I'm moving to Florida because I didn't have a job and was still looking for a job out of college in Boston. And that kind of allowed me to move because I didn't have that career right away. So I literally called my parents and said, I need money. I found an apartment. They're like, you're not moving to Florida. And I said, I'm moving to Florida. And they sent me the money, and I got an apartment that weekend. So that was in Tampa, and I had no job when I moved here. So I was interviewing at a million different places. And I interviewed at a mortgage company in 2001 and started off at AmeriQuest Mortgage as a loan officer, and then moved into processing because all the processors quit. And so I was there and then moved to another company, and then we moved down here to Southwest Florida. The market was booming in 2004. We opened up a real estate and mortgage company at that time, and we made a killing. I mean, we were in our early 20s, making a ton of money. I had, all of the cars and the leases and a condo in Miami and everything. And then we all know what happened in 2008. The market crashed. So at that point, I had my daughter in 2007, my son in 2008, and I was just like, what am I going to do? And I was married, obviously. And I said, I'm going to go full-time into real estate. I started door knocking and closed the real estate and mortgage company. I also, at the time, had my 220 insurance license. I thought I was going to have, all 3. I still have all 3 licenses, but at that time went full-time into real estate and just door knocked. I door knocked people that had Liz pendants. I door knocked expired listings. I door knocked for sale by owners. And I started building my listing inventory pretty quickly, moved to Miami. Didn't know anybody in Miami. We moved on a whim, and I'm very sporadic in that way. But I did very good in Miami with EWM Realty over there. It was awesome. I loved it. But I really wanted my kids to be around my parents and grow up, with family around. So we moved back here, and I was interviewing at Keller Williams in Naples. And I was like, there's a mortgage company in here. Maybe I should go back into mortgages. And we all know I love to travel.
Yep.
So that allows me to be in mortgage, and no one knows where I am. I could be in San Diego doing a loan, and no one knows, right? Because everything's virtual.
Yeah.
So really started to think about living my life by design, and designing my life based off of, or designing the business based off of my lifestyle.
I love that. Now, you both have success. You both built success, and then you both started over. One, obviously, you decided to move to a different country, different area, and yours obviously was impacted due to a market crash. So what do you think the biggest influence for both of you has been, whether it's in business, family, or life in general?
The biggest what?
The biggest influence.
Well, I think when I listen to Neil's story, it's similar to mine in ways that we both know how to hustle. And that's really something that drives me. And it sounds like it's something that drives him as well. But, I don't think there was any big influence except for myself and my drive and what I want in life.
I love that.
I think mine is biggest is my hunger for education and knowledge. That's always given me the edge. Danielle is obviously there too, because she's the most brilliant person I've ever met. So that has always given me an unfair advantage. During the crash, before the crash hit, I sold all my assets literally before the crash hit. And I mean, I had a lot of assets in real estate. I sold everything. I went cash. And then the crash hit. And people said, well, did you guess? Yeah, well, I called the meeting. I had about 50 offices at that time. Called the meeting with all the brokers. And they're like, oh, no, we're in a microeconomy in Florida. It's not going to crash here. Guess what? Last 3 recessions were caused by oil prices. The economy is booming like crazy in those days. School teachers were buying 10 houses, and oil prices were starting to increase. Pretty obvious something was going to happen, right? So I had no idea to the extent. So my advantage was, that's one, I'd say, was all knowledge, because I study and read a lot. I get up every morning at 5 o'clock and I study and I research. And my next thing is, I was born with this, I don't take no. I don't believe in no. So if somebody says this can't be done, this redneck from Canada is moving down to Florida to start a national real estate company.
It makes you go even more.
How absurd does that sound? And it is, right? But I've never thought of that. And so it could be simple things in life, right? My daughter going on a cruise ship, we didn't have her birth certificate, and they said, there's no way you can get around it. Trust me, I figured a way around that. I was probably the only one in the nation who ever did it. I did it because I wouldn't take no. So that's just the way I am.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take no. I'm going to make it happen.
Danielle, I'd love to hear. Now you're working with Neil. You're actually doing his loan right now, right? So I'd love to help, or I'd love for you to explain the process and your relationship with that transpired between you guys.
Yeah, I think that we have, the program that I'm doing with Neil is a different program that not every lender has. It's one of the most amazing programs. It's called the All-in-One Loan Program. And essentially, it's like a first mortgage line of credit. The good thing is we can go all the way up to $2 million on that program. So somebody that's looking for a jumbo loan, it's not technically considered jumbo with this program. The other thing is it's like a first mortgage line of credit. And so what it does is it combines your mortgage with your checking account. In fact, it's actually very popular in Canada and other parts of the world. It's just not very popular here. And it's the only loan that allows you to pay principal first, because when every single dime you deposit into that checking account, what it does is it automatically pays down the principal balance on your mortgage. And it's combined with, so your mortgage is combined with that checking account, and it sweeps every night. So the interest is calculated daily based on whatever the principal is at that time. The other really cool thing about that mortgage is that you always have access to that equity. So let's just say you flip a house, you get $30,000 from that flip or however much, you put that in that checking account, you have access to that equity for whatever you want. Where if you were to put that down on a traditional mortgage, principal and interest 30-year fixed, nothing's going to change. Your payment doesn't change. The amount of interest you pay doesn't change. Like you're paying it down on that principal. You're paying it down on the mortgage, but you're not able to access that equity. So it's a really different type of mortgage. It also allows some flexibility with condo financing. Some condos can't get financed, especially new construction in Florida, if they're, if they don't have that Fannie Mae PERS approval. So it's a really great program that we have. So I think that was one of the things that sparked Neil's attention.
Oh, absolutely. So for me, being a Canadian and not just being a business person, I had somebody else that said they were going to put a mortgage on it, and the rates were, not really what I wanted, but I didn't have the flexibility. So for this, it's like a line of credit. So I won't keep a mortgage on my home very long, but I will use that for various investments. So now this gives me the flexibility of a line of credit, the tax benefits of the same sort of write-offs that I have on a mortgage. So it's such a win-win, and the rates are incredible. Like obviously the rates are low right now, but on this sort of product, the rates are incredible. So yeah, I wasn't familiar with it, but I'll tell you, it is a really, really good product. So I was lucky. Danielle, again, we've worked for each other for a long time. Danielle is, with my brokerages, has dozens of stories of people that could not get financed with another lender, and they go, and I always would tell the agent, they'd call me, I say, go to Danielle. And they go to Danielle, and again, I saw her post on her Facebook last week, 2 more closings last week, both got turned down from other mortgage people, and she put them through. So, and mine was an example of that. They couldn't put a normal mortgage, not because of me, because of the building could not be approved, because it's a brand new condominium. Called up Danielle, bang, it's done. So
yeah, I got an exception on it. Yeah, it comes down to about, calling who you need to call and also structuring the deals properly.
Now, you're doing, explain a little bit more on your online business and your teaching methods. I mean, obviously we've kind of, we were talking about it earlier, but explain a little bit more for listeners.
This is my passion. Like I wake up at 5 a.m. to work on that every day. It's really my side hustle. I love it. It's kind of crazy how I fell into it. When I sold real estate, I was in coaching. And I loved it. And I was paying, $12,000 a year to have a coach. And I know Neil believes in coaching as well. But the coaching was awesome. I was getting value from it. And I've learned a ton from coaching. So when I came back and decided to get back into mortgage, I was like, okay, first of all, I can't believe I never kept a database, which was so stupid. And I'm like, I'm starting from scratch again, move to Miami, start from scratch, come back over to Southwest Florida, start from scratch, go into a different industry. How am I going to get business? So what I said was, well, why don't I take everything I know and create, and in fact, Sellstate is the first class I did it for, but I said, let me create these classes on how to list and sell expireds, how to list and sell for sale by owners, business planning, all different classes. And I remember I put this class together and I sat my mom, my dad, and my husband and my kids in the living room at my house and said, okay, I want to teach you this class. And I remember, because I remember my dad saying, what does that have to do with mortgage? I'm like, no, Dad, I'm going to go and teach these realtors on how to sell real estate and then in turn hope to get their mortgage business. And that's what I did. And then I started going, and I was in Neil's, both of his offices, and we would have 30, 40 agents. And then I would go to all Neil's classes and take what he said and make it my own and teach other people.
So you added value, right?
Yes,
You added
exactly. So anyways, I created all of those classes. I got really good feedback from it. And now I want to share it, with the world. So I'm trying to create them and I have a website and start to really push those out.
Awesome. Now, Neil, you do some coaching as well. Can you explain on that?
Yeah, I've always been, like I said, big on education, and like any leader, we love to share, right? Mm-hmm. So we like people to, do whatever we've done to make ourselves successful. So mine is primarily now for our brokers, right? So Sellstate franchisees is what I spend my time helping elevate them in their businesses. And the way the domino falls is I teach them, they teach their agents. So that's basically on how we do it. Now it's more about creating systems. And, people ask, so here's an interesting story. So I moved down to Florida. Let's take the second part of that story. Moved down to Florida, knew nobody. I started with Century 21 brokerage. I walk in, Joe and Bartolo was a broker. First day, he put me in this office with brown paneling, a brown desk, and brown shag carpet. And I sat there by myself after leaving my Canadian empire with huge teams and big businesses, and I was in this brown office with a laptop in front of me. And I looked at that laptop and I said to myself, oh boy, here we go. I'm starting all over again, brand new, right? It was starting brand new. Mm-hmm. Now, I certainly had way deeper pockets, obviously, but I was starting again as a realtor. I got my license May 14th. The first 9 days, I listed 9 homes. I was a listing agent of the month. And everybody flipped out. How'd this new kid moved here, doesn't know a soul, listed 9 houses in 9 days?
How did you do it?
Well, Joe and Bartolo freaked out too. He said, oh my goodness, I've never seen this before. He said, everybody in the office is watching you. They all said, will you share? And of course, I'm a teacher. Of course, I would love to share. So he called a meeting, and there must have been 150 agents, and usually about half at best showed up. That meeting, 150 agents were there. It was jammed. Everybody was there to hear me. And I walked up, and I had my hands in the pocket. I said, yeah. I said, I got here on May 14th. I started listing. And this is what I did. I called for sale by owners and expired listings. Thank you. That's what I did, right? It was a difference, right? I was, just
mic drop,
right?
Yeah, it was.
That was a long meeting.
That was, but really, that's what I did. I sat in that little brown office and I called hundreds of expired listings for sale by owners because they all had their hand up. And I did crazy things. I remember listing a house in Gateway, and I thought Gateway was another city. I'm like, oh, I screwed up. I listed this house in Gateway. I'm like, where is Gateway? I figured it was another city. They said, no, relax. It's like over here by the airport. I'm like, oh, okay. So it's, I think as we take a look at our businesses and reflect back. So 12 months later, I had closed $100 million. Wow. Closed. That doesn't include pending. I was, for that company, Century 21 in the state of Florida, I was highest producer, Century 21 agent in the state of Florida for the year 2000. That was the year I got here. So no family, no friends, closed $100 million the first year. And people said, wow, that's amazing. How did you close $100 million when you just moved here? You had no sphere of influence. Well, it's simple. I had a machine in Canada. I unplugged it there, and I plugged it in down here. Right? It was a machine that I had in Canada. I unplugged it. Now, I was 15 years senior into the business. Obviously, I had deeper pockets. I knew what I was doing. But that's in essence. So knowledge. So I'm not any smarter than anybody else, nor am I a better salesman than anybody else. And if somebody took the machine that I used in those days and plugged it in, they would get the exact same results. So that's what we like to share with our people.
Amazing.
You know what's funny is my story, I did not do as much as you, but very similar when I moved to Miami, and they were asking me, you moved here, you did not know anybody, and you don't speak Spanish, which that was a big thing for people, which I was like, it's okay if I don't speak Spanish. I'll get around. I'll be okay. But I started listing property. It took me 30 days of consistent cold calling. But my first was, I called it Just Listed and got that first listing. And then it just started to snowball. And they asked me, how are you doing this? I'm calling expireds for sale by owners, just listeds, just solds. And I think the biggest thing is consistency. Yep. Because we can teach people all day long what to do. The problem is they'll do it for a couple of days and give up when it doesn't work.
We have a lot of realtors that are listening to this podcast. Can you tell us briefly some of the differences from doing real estate up in Canada versus doing real estate down here in the United States?
People are people, so there's not much difference, to be honest with you. I think the most significant difference is in the banking. Mm-hmm. It's the mortgages. That's where the most significant difference, because although that's changing. So it used to be in Canada to get a mortgage, I shouldn't say it's difficult. It was par for the course that you needed a good job, you needed a good credit rating. For example, buying an apartment building in Canada, the way they would calculate it, you have to have the money to be able to pay for that building when it's vacant. Because they assume if all the tenants move out, you got to pay for it. So it's hard to scale, right? So they don't take the income from the building into consideration when you're purchasing. So that was the biggest difference. Is that the other thing is Canadians are very different culturally. So when I moved down here, I thought it blew my mind. So almost all the houses I would go to list, I'm meeting people that are 50, 60 years old and had mortgages on their house. In Canada, very rare you meet somebody over 40 years old with a mortgage. Nobody. So when we graduate, we get a job, the first thing we're trained is pay the house off, because interest is not tax deductible, for one thing, right? Taxes are not tax deductible. So as a Canadian, what you try to do is pay your house off first. So I would list houses, and nobody had mortgages. I moved to Florida and started listing houses. I'm meeting 70-year-old people with 90% mortgages on their house. I'm like, what? You're going to die with a mortgage. It was really, I found a bizarre concept. As far as selling real estate, it's the same all over the world, right? It's people. It's connections. It's relationships. It's not salesmanship, right? It's about relationships and about truly being a good person and wanting to help people, putting their needs in front of your needs every single time. And that sounds so corny, but it's so true, because I could talk about so many cases in my life where I've walked away from commissions and I did the right thing and it's always paid. And so you never look for the dollar. Yeah. You always consider the consumer first. Oops. And you know what? So real estate's the same. People are people.
Love that. Now, I want to switch gears. You both have created big businesses, and there's a lot of listeners that have that aspiration to build businesses. So what kind of advice besides, going above and beyond with client retention, client services, because obviously customers and clients do drive your business, don't get me wrong, but what are some advice to creating it, getting these people out of their comfort zone to actually commit and start doing?
I have two things. Number one is surround yourself with people that are doing what you want to do and better than you. You want to make sure there's that old saying that you are the average of the 5 people you hang around with. So if you want to do more, hang around with people doing more. So that's huge. And then also is a lot of